an avenue that I'm comfortable with, which has made me a lot more confident. I mean, there's always that saying, like, if you're nervous when you're about to do a speech, just imagine everyone naked and it'll go away. It's like, it's true. Like, once you've stood there naked with other naked people, like nothing can really touch you anymore. Nothing can bring you down. So it's empowering in that sense, I would say.
Welcome to the Men of Yoga podcast. In today's episode, we have a special guest, Yogi Whale, also known as Nick. You may have seen him on Instagram or YouTube, and he's going to tell us about his unique journey of yoga that started in the Far East and culminated in Costa Rica, where I live. We'll also talk about the importance of men's spaces in general, naked yoga, boners, and as always, a lot more interesting stuff. So let's do it.
Hello there, Coco.
Buenos dias, Guru.
We are now live on Spotify and YouTube and soon to be on Apple Plus and Hulu and Paramount.
Damn, so exciting.
We have a special guest today. I'm going to be bringing on our other guy pal, Nick, out of UK, who actually also spends time in Mexico, but I want to say he's in UK today. So without further ado, say hello, Nick.
Hello, Nick.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. Thanks, guys, for inviting me. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for making time for us. Before we get started, just to kind of warm you up a little bit, I did a little bit of digging in terms of like how we first connected, you and I, through Men of Yoga. And my records show that we actually connected way back in way back in March 6, 2022.
Really? Was that long?
We are 2 years in, and I love that you actually made the first, you said hello first to Men of Yoga.
That's not like me. Usually I'm shy.
Oh, I love that. So you made first contact, and so I just want to bring that up. And you know, without keeping everybody else in suspense, I had met Coco a year before, so Roscoe and I are 3 years in deep. So anyway, with that said, Nick, please introduce yourself and tell us everything, starting with your yoga journey and how you found yoga and all of that good stuff.
Sure. Well, my yogi name, the name that I go by, the name that I teach by is Yogi Whale, which obviously came from the word yogi, as we are. And my surname, which is Whaley, and obviously it's like a play on Yogi Bear. So I just kind of smashed them up and put Yogi Whale. And then this, I know it's cheesy, but this logo just came to me in a Shavasana, and I was like, well, I could do like a whale tail that looks like two legs or a tail coming out the water, and then made this kind of Yogi Whale creation. I have no idea where it came from, but here I am. So that's my kind of alias, Yogi Whale, which I kind of based everything around. But like my family, growing up in school, my nickname was always Whaley. My brother's nickname, like we always kind of refer to each other as Whale. So it's nice that I kind of carry my family's name a little bit in what I'm doing, because that's important kind of for me, especially, you know, to remember where I came from, my roots, and yeah, it's just carrying a little bit of pride in what I do, which is really nice. But my yoga journey started in 2016. I was doing a bit of backpacking around Southeast Asia, and I met this really nice girl from California, and she said, hey, you want to do some yoga with me? And I was like, no, that's not for me. I've never done it before. I've all those kind of avoidant excuses, but there wasn't much to do. I was on the Gili Islands, and so if you've ever been there, they're very small. So I was like, there's not much to do today. So, okay, I'll take this yoga class. I'll go and check it out. And I remember I hated it. It was like, 35 degrees. I was with all these beautiful people doing all these incredible poses. And I was like, yeah, this is definitely not for me. This is exactly what I thought it might be. So it kind of put me off my initial experience. But then I returned to it a few months later. I was working with a girl, and we were sharing a car at the time. And she went, oh, I really want to go to this yoga class before work. And I was like, no, I'll drop you off. I'll wait outside. I'll take a walk, and then we'll go. But she was like, just come, you're there anyway. So I was kind of coerced into my second yoga experience. But that experience was entirely different. First of all, there was AC, so I wasn't so sweaty, and it was in this really nice studio. It was very gentle. There wasn't so many people. Um, but I just remember after class, I think the class overran, and me and my friend kind of like were nudging each other in Shavasana. I was like, we really need to go to work. Like, it's getting late. We can't use this as an excuse. Well, we probably could, because we've used many excuses for being late. Yoga would be a good one. But I just remember the whole day at work, I was like, wow, I feel really good. I feel like really light. Um, I don't know, that kind of Shavasana feeling, that yoga feeling. I just felt it throughout the day, and I was like, I want to feel like this again, or like, maybe there is something to this. And maybe my first experience was just a write-off because it was too hot and I was dead set against it. But yeah, so I just started from there, and I started going regularly with her, and then I started self-practice and videos online, YouTube, and just really developed there. And it started off very like physical and enjoying the stretch and enjoying how it was making my body feel, enjoying seeing progress in my body, how I could like access different asanas and positions. But then kind of this deeper journey started to unravel. And then I would say it became more of a lifestyle. I started to explore a little bit more into it, where I felt that I needed to wait until I was ready to take my training. But actually, after when I took my training, I was like, I could have done this after my first class, because everyone there was, with all different experiences, also kind of welcoming. I just thought in my own head, like, oh, I can't do a teacher training until I'm with the masters, the gurus. But it's totally not the case. So if anyone was ever thinking the same as I did, and you've took a few classes and you feel that you'd want to learn more, like, don't ever let that be a reason not to go, because I probably waited too long and I could have done it a bit earlier. But anyway, so that's where I am. I could uh I could elaborate, but that's kind of where I got to with my teacher training, and since then been kind of teaching, trying new things, trying things I didn't like, finding out things, finding my niche, things like that, and yeah, so it's took me to present day.
What is it? If you don't mind elaborating a little bit more, like how did you go through your teacher training process? Was it online? Was it live? Was it like a particular style, or what is it that drew you to even commit to a teacher training?
Sure. Well, knowing my own personality, if I ever did anything online or self-study, I would like pick it up, do it a few days, and then 6 months have passed and I haven't do it. So I wanted something kind of crash course style, do it a whole, take some time off and go away to do it. And I actually did it in Costa Rica. Maybe Roscoe, the school Lakshmi Rising. They're in I know there's a lot of schools, but
There are.
they're they're based in San Jose at the moment. When I did it, it was in Guanacaste in Montezuma, but the school has moved. But before that, I was doing a lot of research on where I want to do it, how I want to do it, um, trying to find somewhere with the right foundations, the right roots, kind of the right respect for yoga and things like that. So yeah, and Costa Rica was always top of my list of where I wanted to do it. So it just kept coming up every time I'd find somewhere and look at it, doing it in the UK or another country or every avenue. I kept coming back to this school. I kept coming back to Costa Rica, and I was like, I think this is the one. Like, it's just kind of calling to you, and it was like it's opened a lot of doors for me, and it's been great. So yeah, I'm glad I did it that way as well. I know I'm very lucky to have time to be able to do that, to go away and to take that training. But if anyone was ever presented with that opportunity, it's very introspective when you're taking, those 3-4 weeks to, it's of course you learn a lot of stuff about yoga, but I think the most I learned was about myself. It was transformative in a very short time, and the teacher kind of prepared us when we were like let loose to the world. It was a little bit like, wow, like, I don't know, just everything was a little bit I still have not quite found the words to describe how transformational that experience was, but yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, we remember what transformation was like. It's like, woo. Yeah, my teacher even said, like, how do I describe it? It's like finally understanding what Jesus meant to people. And I'm like, oh, that's a
Yeah.
good one. That's a good one,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so when you have that like those aha moments, I want to go back to Yogi Whale. I see that you're wearing your shirt like I am
I
because we're
thought
like,
I'd be repping, yeah, why not? And
yeah,
it's not as nice as Roscoe's uniform, but never mind.
I'm wearing my shirt that
he's
represents my brand as well.
yeah, exactly.
Like
This
it.
is we're showing our true authentic selves here.
Sure.
Are you so when I first saw your logo and I heard about like your brand, I thought that you were into like uh I thought you were like Aquaman. Like, oh, he's like into sea creatures and dolphins and whales. Like, are you are
Yeah.
you are you a big fan of whales at all? Besides
No.
besides the whaley
No.
family.
No. I mean, little cute emoji drawing whales, but I I can't say I'm like a huge fan. I love them, I respect them, they're amazing, but I'm not
Yeah.
like I don't have like whale posters all over my bedroom or
You're
anything
not like
like
trying
that.
to save the whales from
No,
extinction.
no, I mean little bits at a time, yeah, but it's not my calling.
Well, not yet.
Not yet, yeah, who knows?
Not yet. Um, so Coco, how about you? Any questions that you have up front?
Mm, well, I could ask you some, I think the yoga teacher training experience, like you said, it can be so different from school to school or setting to setting. And
Mm,
so, you can do really super practical information oriented ones like online. You can do really intimate ones. You can do the type that you did, which is a full on experience. And I can just comment on and say, like to anybody, kind of like what you were saying, like to anybody who's interested, realize that there's so many different flavors and versions of the yoga teacher training, and they are very introspective. It is really learning, like you have to learn and know yourself, and you have to really learn and understand like a lot of these universal concepts about energy and the mind and chakras, and integrate and explore some of your own trauma and stuff to be able to be a yoga teacher. So it's really a lot more than learning poses and breath and just how to teach people those things. So I'm interested to hear a little bit more about, like, um, paint us a picture of what your experience was like, because Montezuma, Costa Rica is such a gorgeous, magical, amazing location. So yeah, tell us about it. Like, I want to know, how big was your group, and did you make lifelong friends in that group, and what kind of surprising things did you discover about yourself that was like
yeah.
amazing?
Um, well, I remember first arriving to Montezuma, I just got in the day before, and just walking into this town, and it took me a whole like 30 seconds to walk around the town. I was like, wow, it really is small. And then just all that kind of, there was this kind of like heaviness, curiosity the night before, but it kind of was again quite like a profound experience. I felt like this kind of inner voice, this deeper, it came from like a deeper place saying like, I'm ready, like you're ready. And then the next morning, it was at a location called the Sanctuary, which again, like truly lives up to its name. It was right up in the hills of Montezuma, about half an hour drive in, and then we got off the little minivan, the minibus, kind of met with the other groups and the other vehicles. There was 16 of us all together, um, mainly from the US. There was a couple of Germans, English, Irish, but yeah, it was in majority from the US. And the first experience that I remember was getting off the van, and we'd take off our luggage and then we'd give it to some of the staff and the groundkeepers. They would put it in like an amphibian vehicle, wrap it up, and that would head to the resort, and we would do the walk. It was like an initiation process. So it was like a 30-minute walk through about four different rivers and streams, not like intense. You weren't like wading through like waist deep, but it was exciting. We were all talking along the way, getting to know each other, and the group would kind of split up and we'd talk to different people. So it was a really nice half an hour walk to get to arrive at this actual place where we'd be spending the next 3 weeks. Um, and yeah, we'd crossed the last river, walked up the hill, and then there was just this beautiful ground. I would say like the sanctuary was quite sloped, so you didn't quite see how big the grounds were until later on in the exploration. But um, there was no Wi-Fi. It was like a true kind of cut-off experience. So definitely overpacked because I'm sure I just wore like the same two vests for the for the 3 weeks I was there. Like just did not need all the outfits that I took. I was preparing for lots of like jungle chic and kind of exploring outfits, but never mind. Um, and yeah, the 3 weeks that we spent there was really well organized. It was kind of just coming out of COVID as well, so there wasn't the excursions that would usually be planned, but there was option to head into Montezuma, or you could always leave the resort. But I never felt the need to. And that's not like me as well. If I'm in a new place, I'm like, what can I see? Where can I go? How much time do I have? Like, try and see as much and do as much as possible. But in this 3 weeks, I never left. Um, I, there was a beautiful sun deck, so you had to climb right to the top of the past the yogashala, right up in the hills, and there was this deck where you could just about see the ocean in the distance. Well, you could see it wasn't that far, but it was more the view and the expanse of this from this sun deck. So it also was quite a realization. Wow, like I really am far from civilization. I'm in the middle of nowhere. The howler monkeys, and you were you were a visitor there. It quickly like became apparent that you're a visitor in this sanctuary in this jungle, especially when there's lots of things crawling around and on your way to your little hut that we stayed in. But yeah, it was just really wholesome. The food was fantastic. It was all prepared like vegetarian, vegan, but a lot of it was grown on the resort as well, and it came from all the local produce. So there was a lot of thought that went into the cuisine. Um, and I don't know, just having that cut off, like I said, we rely having the cut off from the internet, and we rely so much on that was again really good for me, especially like because we get caught up on our phones and our laptops with notifications, and there was just none of that. I remember the first few days kind of reaching for my phone, and I was like, "Oh, what's the point? There's not going to be anything there for me." And over the next few days, I left my phone in my villa like for most of the time. Like so, it was nice to know that it's not needed and you can kind of live without it. But it was a kind of also a first few days of like I don't need my phone. It was great to take pictures and that, but that was about it. Um. So yeah, where was it? What else was I going to say? It was just the whole experience, and when I left, on that last day, that was when I felt like at the beginning I was like, I am ready. And then at the end I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to like go back. Um it was like a little bit scary because I got up early to do the walk, and then I was going to wait for a van because after that I was heading to Samara in a little bit further up the coast. And I think when I saw a motorbike drive past, I was like hissing at it. I was like, oh my God, people, like I haven't, I felt like feral after spending 3 weeks here in this place and then suddenly hearing the sound of this awful motorbike and the traffic going past even at that time in the morning. So yeah, I mean, I quickly got back into my bad habits after that, but it was just a beautiful experience inside, outside, sensory and everything about it. So I think that helped as well, really switching off and not having those distractions to self-study um, and absorb all that knowledge, which I remember at the time was quite overwhelming. I've revisited a lot of things since, and I'm like, oh, it does make a bit more sense now. But at the time, I was like, what is a dosha? I have no idea. And it was explained like over and over. And now I'm like, okay, I understand it a little bit more because, yeah, my brain could only absorb so much and kind of reached a limit where I was like, I don't know if I can understand anymore. But that's another thing that's quite important. Anyone teaching about it, you don't need to know everything like right now. It's a lifelong study, it's a lifelong journey. And you'll find things that will interest you, you'll find things where you're like, that's not your niche, not your avenue. So yeah, that's also a part of the integration, kind of finding your voice with yoga, finding how it integrates into your life.
Nice. I kind of chewed a little bit, masticated a little bit on the idea of not having cell service for an hour or a day, or how I take my device fast is like when I go to a movie. It's like I leave stuff at home and I'm going somewhere. But the funny part is, like, I know that my husband has his phone, so I would always say, I don't have my phone. Do you mind taking a photo of this? Or do you mind texting me this? Like, I would tell him like things I would do for myself. But the funny part about you saying that is, like, there is this idea of, in our minds, especially in this world of social media, like we have this pattern and this behavior, and we wake up in the morning, we go to social media, especially as content creators. We kind of adhere to certain rules, consistency and regular timing, regular schedule. And I find that funny because when you unplug for an hour, for a day, the world will go on without us.
Yeah,
Nobody is sitting there waiting for spiritual guru to come up with this brilliant 15-second reel. You know what I mean? Like, the world is going to be fine without us, which I find really refreshing, that when we go and disappear for a number of hours, number of days, that we do make it all about ourselves. And that to me is like the whole test of like what yoga can be for you as well. It's like just going inside and connecting what's around you, instead of like this thing that we've conditioned ourselves to practice. Um,
yeah.
I want to go back to, also, Coco was asking about like the connections that you've made. Like, do you have any long-term besties or somebody you've connected with, somebody to share that story with, to this moment, to this day?
Yeah, sure. That's something I wanted to touch on. Yeah, I've made some fantastic. I mean, the WhatsApp group that we still had with the organization pings every now and then with kind of memories and stuff. So there's always that. But yeah, I definitely made some lifelong friends. Some that I've reconnected with in person. Some that I write to whenever I can. But I've the girl from Ireland. We were staying in the same hostel the night before the buses were picking us up to start the journey, and it was so refreshing. We kind of giggle about it now, but we were like had all these assumptions and all these preemptions about how it's going to be, what the people are going to be like, and when we kind of met each other, and I think we sat around the big table in the hostel, and people were like, "Oh, what are you here for?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm doing a teacher training tomorrow," and I was like, "Are you with this school?" And she was like, "Yeah." So it was, as soon as we met, we just connected. It was like she was so refreshing, so nice, and we both kind of comforted each other in that way. And her, I've reconnected with her quite a few times. When I left the yoga school, I went to Guatemala to work in a surf camp, just to go straight into teaching, do like an exchange. And she did the same, but she went to the lake, Atitlan. So we kind of met there and reconnected a few months later, trying to plan something so I can see her again. There was another girl, I was working in Bali last year, and another girl was there on holiday. I saw her. That was just amazing. We just, yeah, like the people that you meet there. Um, Obviously, a lot of people are open-minded, like-minded, so the connections are really great. You don't have to. Oh, did my Zoom just go off? Am I
Nope.
muted? Oh, I had a call come through, but then, yeah. So those, you're connecting with people who are on a similar path. Like, you're not just thrown in a room of people or a bar, and it's like, oh, which one am I gonna like? Or you're, it's full of introverts and extroverts, at the same time, but yeah, the people there are on a similar journey, exploring themselves, and the conversation I just remember around the dinner table, like, I mean, a late night there was like 10 p.m. We'd have our dinner at like 7:30, but then we'd be there for like hours just talking, and the conversations were just surreal. I was like, oh, there really are people like this in the world. People who don't just want to talk about kind of shallow stuff, like really want to understand and explore and have all these theories and interpretations of life. Like, it was just, I'd never really had conversations like that before, and it was beautiful. It was just nice to talk to these people and not feel silly. Because I mean, I sometimes think if I bring up things with people I've met or friends at home, they'd be like, "Shut up, Nick," or like, "We don't want to hear that right now." but of course, like we still talk about those things, but just it was just every night this really introspective and fantastic conversation. So that's one thing I'd say. Like the people that I met there were so interesting. Everyone had a story, and we're very vulnerable and in a safe way to share it around the table or around throughout the training. It was really safe space.
Nice, man. And so how many identify as male and anybody gay, and like what was the demographic? Were you
Yeah,
the only,
it
were
was.
you, like usually teacher training, there's only like two guys and then the rest women. And then hopefully
Yeah,
there's like one gay until they, they make everybody gayer after their experience.
yeah, I was the token gay. It was two guys to 14 girls. One of the guys was married, so him and his wife were on the training together. So yeah, I mean he handled it well. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I handle girls most of the time, but he must have been like, what the fuck? But yeah, it was really nice. It never felt like that. And some of the staff there, one of the guys running the cuisine was a guy, and one of the groundkeepers was a guy, and some of the other staffs are like, we weren't just the only guys, but taking the training, yeah. And I went back to the school in March. Yeah, I was working there back with the same school, but I went to San Jose. I was doing some of the social media and massage. Anyway, again, it was the same ratio. There was one guy and then me, um, and then the other students as well. So I get that that's a thing. Whenever I go to studios, whenever I'm teaching, it's mainly females. But that I'm sure you feel the same. Like not just with gay men, but like with men in general or straight men. Like that's something I would like to see more of. Because it has certainly helped me express a lot of feelings and emotions and deal with them. Um, and like straight guys, or at least I feel there's not always they don't feel safe to express those things or to deal with those things. I'm not saying all of them, but in my experience, yoga helped me do that.
Mhm.
So I felt like if more guys could come to the mat, it could be a nice place for them to process those things.
Oh, 100%, man. One of the things that I pride on is like uh our men of yoga. Like I just didn't know like gay, straight, like it didn't matter. Like, Aaron and I are gay, and so it's kind of a given, like the guys running the show is a gay couple, but it was never put out there. And lo and behold, all of these macho presenting men like being featured turns out to, have other, yeah, they have other photos, and like, oh my God, they're with men. Oh my God, they're at Pride. Like, I just don't ask like, oh, by the way, are you gay? It just never become a thing. And surprisingly enough, huge gay population in the men of yoga community, huge, you know, and with that, like, one of the things that Coco and I think have in common is like the whole piece of like men's work, naked yoga, like where's the line in terms of like what is appropriate for the gay community, because we've always been the rebel, we've always been the outcast, we've always been queer. And so even though the yoga is the same for all of us, I think our representation is still slightly different. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like creating that safe space, for instance, it's like it's when you create like a men's only yoga, for instance, they feel less intimidated because there's less women in the room like doing their thing. Like they feel like they're with their own tribe, you know. So I
Yeah,
just find, yeah. Do you dabble in a specific work with gay people and or men?
yeah. I've led some naked yoga classes the same as well. Depends on where I am, what facilities I have access to, and how I can market it as well. But yeah, I've done like some like couples classes, which is really nice. Uh, but generally, again, it's always gay men that kind of take the take the bait, kind of like, oh, I'll try it because it sounds like it's intimate, like as in like I can be myself with a man, but the straight man's like, I don't want that. I'm not interested. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to explore it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, I think gay people are certainly the rebel type, more open-minded to these kind of experiences. I don't know. I hate generalizing because, and that sounds what I'm doing, but it's only through my experience that, okay, my classes are either full of women or gay men. So I wanted to ask you guys, like, what's your theory behind that? Why is it? I mean, it's an age-old question, or at least since yoga's become popular in the last few decades. Like, why is it women? What majority women or?
Yeah. I'll let Coco take the lead on this. He is, I call him the master of men's work. So Coco, share that energy with us. I see you like, I'm ready to talk.
Well, I am ready to talk, but I don't know what I'm going to say, which is always interesting, but here we go. I feel like women, took yoga because it naturally appealed um, to the feminine spirit, and like they needed a thing, so like women picked up yoga in the United States, at least, or in Western culture. It wasn't for women traditionally in India, but they loved it, and it became a safe space for women, where they could have like it's not a sport, it's not competitive, so it probably appealed to women more in that way. I think a lot of women are way more interested in like emotions and spirituality. And so, whereas the Western conditioning for men is, to be competitive and be rough and, just stay in your ego, don't be vulnerable. So that makes sense to me. And then now, fast forward to where we're at now, like culturally and with yoga, it became like a safe haven for women, and a lot of women have trauma with men. So it almost feels like, there's like a lot of feminism in yoga. It's a safe space for women, and there's a kind of an energy of like women don't really want straight men invading their space and gazing at them in their yoga pants, and it's just like, ugh, like they want their space. And so maybe there's some men interested in exploring it, but they don't feel welcome in those spaces. Maybe also it's that, like a lot of men in our culture are not, Nick, as you were saying, like very interested in like being vulnerable, talking about emotions. And, but so that's why I think that's one reason that like men's spaces have become important, for the men who do want to explore, but they're looking for more of a sense of brotherhood, and they don't want to invade the space of the ladies. It feels more comfortable because we're more relatable to each other, and there's not as much like treading on thin ice, like don't want to do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing or appear too sexually interested or anything like that. I think gay men are often caught in a trap of being like really catty and gay and, like jokey and silly and all of that. And then men are, other men who aren't gay are trapped in a different box, which is being macho. And me and Will both agree and think that it's really good to create spaces for men where it isn't about whether you're gay or straight or what your sexual identity is. It's just to bring men together and to create a space where they feel safe and they can let their guard down and take the mask off and see that we're actually all very similar in some ways. We don't have to be divided by gay versus straight.
Yeah.
But like trying to bring all types of people together, it can be done, and I think that's really valuable too. It's just can be harder because different yoga studios and different yoga schools and different places of practice tend to have a more specific culture and target audience. So it is hard to keep in today's world, especially where there's so much trauma and triggering and blah, 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 like all this stuff. It's kind of hard to bring such a diverse group of people and keep them together and keep them happy.
I find that also very interesting because like during the pandemic, right? Like I'm going to say, if not all people, most people gravitated towards the online space, be it like any kind of workouts, any kind of connection, group calls or whatnot. There is this need to connect with people. And so I think when you go to the gyms and you go to the yoga studio, it may not be the forefront of people's intention, but at the end of the day, why would you want to be in a group setting if you don't want to connect with people? You know what I mean? Like when you're on your mat, it's a solo practice, but you still want to be surrounded with that energy. But that's not the idea that people are saying. They're not saying, I'm going to go be with a group of people because I want to connect. They're going to say, I want to go practice yoga. Well, you know, you can practice yoga at home, or, you know, you could practice a yoga one-on-one, but you choose to go to a group setting. And I think, just to go back to the women thing, I think because like historically, yoga, the asanas were like developed or designed for like men, and it was always the men's group. And when it was introduced here in the US, it was introduced to the general populace, and it gave people an option, an alternative to other forms of religion, other forms of spiritual practices, and people were drawn to like peace, harmony, and compassion. So I think that's something that drew people into to yoga itself. And I want to say when the 80s came, there was this trend of being in shape. I don't know if you're old enough to remember aerobics. Jane Fonda, and she was releasing her videos, and she wore the leotards, and there's an outfit, and there's a look, and there's an image. And then that bled into group fitness in the gyms, and they had step aerobics. It started to evolve, and I think the progression was yoga became like the next thing where people thought like, I'm now going to do yoga, and it became cool, as cool as smoking cigarettes. You know what I mean?
Right, and it just kind of got culturally like mixed together with group
Yes,
fitness culture.
absolutely. And then enter praise Lululemon. Here's somebody in Vancouver, Canada that said, we're going to create, and I love their mantra, by the way, we're going to create outfits that help you move. That was their thing. Like, we're going to create these things to inspire you to get dressed and do something. And hopefully it's yoga. And so they really leaned into that yoga marketing. And before you know it, it became commercialized, and they were selling rubber mats, and you know what I mean? So there's this like big thing. And then the men kind of started getting intimidated because it was never like a men's sport here in the US, you know? So I think like during the pandemic, a lot of people like this rediscovered yoga, and, you know, thank goodness for like a lot of men's work that it became it was normal to become a yogi, to find maybe even your softer side, your tender side, your vulnerable side, and find strength in that as well. Because women is the opposite, right? It's like, I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to prove my strength. Where guys are going to prove their strength first and then the vulnerability after, you know. So I think that's where we're at. It's like we are definitely putting yoga out there. Now that we're still putting yoga out there, now there's different styles of yoga. You know what I mean? There's Kundalini and there's Bikram. It's just so many different flavors and so many different fruits in the basket that now it gets oversaturated. So I'm hoping, like, you know, just reeling, you know, Nick on one screen out of UK, and I've got Mr. Costa Rica over here, and I've got somebody here in California. The whole idea is to remind people that this yoga practice has brought us all together in the same space, in the same room, and hopefully we can continue inspiring each other to keep doing this work, to keep showing people like why it's important to us that yoga is part of our lives, you know. And yeah, and then and then there's the other piece of like being gay as well. My intention and my goal right in this moment is to introduce older men to yoga who are conventionally going to bars as their go-to. Like gay men, that's what we do. We party, we go to clubs, you know, which is cute and sexy until you hit like maybe 40, 50. My husband will beg to differ, saying, bitch, you're still out partying in your 50s. I'm like, okay, but it's not for everyone. I do have yoga in my life to balance that out. So that piece to me is much more important, to start introducing older men to this quote unquote lifestyle as opposed to the bar scene, you know? And the other piece of that is going to the other point I was making, is that connection, you know. I think Nick was saying earlier that that's not the conversation, the kind of topics that I would cover, because it's not something that we practice. We don't normally just meet and say, so tell me about your childhood.
Oh my God, that was the first thing that happened in my yoga teacher training. You know, like, sorry, I'm not gonna derail the conversation, but like, you choose I think there's something else I wanted to say too, is like, yoga teacher trainings are intense, and these people are drawn together, I believe, mostly because of karma. It's like a thing that is like an important milestone in your life. It's like it's bringing you towards your purpose. And so you choose a yoga teacher training with much reverence and like really make sure that you're drawn to it and it feels right. But my group, I didn't know that it was a trauma, like it was all about trauma. But that's what I needed. If I had known, I probably would have run away from it. But I was attracted to the teacher and the whole vibe of it. I was like, I want to learn yoga from you. Our first day of yoga teacher training, we sat in a circle and it was like, let's talk about childhood trauma. The first thing. But, yeah, yoga teacher trainings are amazing because you're drawn together with people. It's a very purposeful soul's journey kind of thing. Like you have something for each other. There could be some random people that just kind of mindlessly chose the training and don't really connect into it like that. But I think for the most part, people are being drawn together in this for this cosmic purpose. And yeah, anyway, that was how my yoga teacher training started.
I love it. They didn't ask you to take your clothes off?
No, no.
This is clothing optional, by the way. Like, I didn't read that anywhere on the pamphlet.
No, it's not like that at all. I was also the token gay in ours, but and
Yeah.
mostly women. But I learned so much in there that I want to like bring to the men's world. That's kind of the kind of stuff that men are more intimidated to approach, or they don't even know that they need it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go back to like the gay, the nude. For me, like I was always in the impression that yoga is all about it all gets to be here. That's the whole meeting, to bring it all together. So the practice is like, I'm going to introduce you to these different concepts and hopefully you'll make space for that because that gets to be here. However you identify, you get to be here. In the Men of Yoga space that we created, the group that we created on Facebook, I realized that again, once you open up the door, like somebody posts like a nude photo or a nude pose, it gave the other people permission to say, well, I'm going to be downward dog and I'll be naked too. And I don't want to police this, but then there's people that would send and report it to me. And they'll report that it's inappropriate. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is a Men of Yoga. He's men. He's in a yoga pose. What piece of that do you find offensive? Like, well, I didn't know this is a gay site, or I didn't know this is all nude. And I thought, no, as long as it's a yoga practice, I don't care. I don't mind. So what I did was I did a little trolling and looked at this guy's account, and all he posted was like bait as well. It's like, okay. And I think in his mind, he separates it because he sexualizes himself doing things where it's not, he looks at yoga and sexualizes that too. It's almost like I do this in private. Now, mind you, when I'm saying this, he's the stuff that he has on his own account, he's not doing yoga, but it's very racy photos. So I'm thinking people project as well. It's like I consider this racy because that's what I do in my own private space. And that is that fine line of like, when you're gay, it's like we're so done being being in the closet that this is what I look like outside of the closet, and I don't consider myself any more sexual than a woman wearing a tube top and showing her cleavage. You know what I mean? Like we don't need to sexualize each other. We are definitely sexual creatures, and that's why we were once upon a time disliked, because we were practicing PDA. If two guys were to kiss, that was like, do that in your privacy. But when a guy and girls kiss, it's romantic. So I face those kinds of challenges, presenting yoga in the men's space. And so I feel that it's also important to discuss the other kinds of men's work that's out there. I'm going to out Nick right now. Nick has some really sexy photos out there. He's got a great, he's got like I think he did like this triangle like at the pool. I'm like, look at this guy. Okay. And this is, I've known Nick like a couple of years after, but I didn't know that you taught naked yoga.
Yeah, well, just like talking about, well, continuing from what you were saying, like when I, as a student, went to a first naked yoga class. I was like nervous, it was exhilarating. I was kind of in some sense not aroused, but like excited or about the expectations of what might happen, or like all those kind of thoughts. But then when I was there and the space was created, I was like, this is not sexual at all, but it's beautiful. It's really nice. So then when I led it and then being to others, like it no longer is sexualized to me, and it is just a body. But I will say, like the first time I I had those that what's the word? I don't like excitement, I guess,
Mhm.
of the anticipation of it, of what to expect, this new experience. But the the kind of the sexualization was very quickly just no, it's not that. And and then that made me comfortable leading it, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna like invite a group of guys here to experience it, and it's not gonna turn out how I thought it might or whatever. It's and they might have the same thoughts, but as long as I can create an environment where the I mean, I always say like if your body reacts, it's fine, don't worry, just let it happen. It'll go, then it'll come back, and then it'll go. Like
Yeah.
and you're kind of turning it down for that person as well. Like that person can relax, and then it is no longer a sexual experience or sexualized. So it's also like a it allows for any suppression to kind of de-steam a little bit. Um, I don't. We are in society meant to cover our body, meant to cover our clothes, and that can create um in different societies as well, like lots of frustration and desires and urges and things like that. Won't go there, but I just mean like when you're actually exposed to it. I mean, I do like a lot of massage for men, women, and I'm like, I've seen a body, I don't even care like what it looks like anymore, because I'm not in that space, I'm not in that situation. If I'm going to explore that space, then that's entirely different. But like the human body no longer becomes an object, it's just a body, and I'm working with it, whether it's shaping it or helping it move or touching it to relieve it and give it like relief. Like it's just I can really feel the difference between the two. And that's come from my own journey. Like I'm not saying I was super like I'm like super angelic and Christian, but I'm like I can differentiate between uh, a human experience and just being human with another human to sexual desire and sexual exploration. Which I don't think was the question that you asked me. Oh, so you said like you didn't know I teach naked yoga. So it's as and when. It's not a regular. I don't have like a regular Saturday class where it comes down. It depends, like I said, where I might be or if I have the chance to do it. But yeah, it's an avenue that I'm comfortable with, which has made me a lot more confident. I mean, there's always that saying, like, if you're nervous when you're about to do a speech, just imagine everyone naked and it'll go away. It's like, it's true. Like, once you've stood there naked with other naked people, like nothing can really touch you anymore. Nothing can bring you down. So it's empowering in that sense, I would say.
Yeah. What are the things that I'm curious about, since you both lead or have led naked yoga classes? When guys get boners, erections, obviously, first of all, kudos for you. Um, and we don't want to body shame. Is there like a chain reaction that happens? And I'll give you an example. So for me, when I would go to the gym, or when I used to go to the gym, they'd have like a bay shower, and I would go in between doing my lunch break at work. I'd go to the gym, get my workout on, get in the shower. And the moment I get in the shower and somebody there is presenting like they're there to cruise, they'll get like aroused, and before you know it, the guy that he was cruising gets aroused, and I'm sitting there goes, oh fuck, and here I'm getting aroused with them, because it's like everybody like is turned on. I wonder if that's ever become like a thing in class where somebody starts it without like intention, and before you're like, oh no, everybody's getting boners now. Coco, I'll start with you.
Yeah, boners are always celebrated, well, usually celebrated in my class. I think it's like I always say it's how penises smile. And Nick, like you, I at first was more timid and professional about that kind of stuff, and would kind of give disclaimers about like, because I didn't know, I was new to teaching men's yoga, so I was navigating all of that through trial and error, and would just say things like that, like if you get an erection, it's just your body's natural reaction, and let it come, let it go. And if it's a more traditional yoga class, then that I think is perfect. That's all that really needs to be said. But for me, like, I am trying to like I like things to be fun and spicy and exciting. And I like to help people to like, just embrace and get over that kind of stuff. And instead of feeling shame about it, and instead of feeling neutral about it, to feel excited and proud of it. So, like boners often are a chain reaction. Sometimes I start it, but like sometimes it's me first and then they do spread. And if it's a non-sexual class, because I do teach some classes that involve more sexual connection and exploration, but if it's a non-sexual class, then we literally just smile about it, maybe acknowledge it, and realize that you can breathe through it and let go of your attachment to do anything with it. You don't have to start masturbating right now or like freak out that you had a boner. It's just like, the feelings, let them come in, and then let the charge come back out. Let's come back to yoga, come back to the breath. But yeah, in my opinion, to seal that up in conclusion, I think dudes sharing boners together is like one of the most fun and exciting things. It's like a super fun way to just have a moment together to connect. And it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight. It can happen to guys that don't identify as gay. It's like a really hot bro moment that doesn't have to go anywhere, but it's like
I am inspired, or at least I'm having this idea of doing a group introduction at a naked yoga class, and just address the elephant in the room and saying, "Hi, my name is Will, and this is, and I call this your friend." Like, I don't know about most men, or if that's really a thing where you name your penis. I don't know if that's a thing. Like, that's kind of a question. Bro, Coco, do you name your penis?
Mine doesn't actually have a name, but I do think of it and refer to it as my pet dragon. So he needs a name. It hasn't come to me yet, but that's how I talk about them in my men's groups. It's like you and your pet dragon, because they kind of have like a mind of their own. They're
Yeah.
these powerful creatures. They're all like really cool, and they look different, and have different superpowers and qualities. And so I think it's kind of fun to think of it as your pet dragon. Like, show us your pet dragon. Like, tell us
I,
about it. What does it do? What is it? What kind is it?
that's
Um,
awesome. That's good. See, that's why I love you.
yeah, I'm kind of like a first grade teacher for adult men.
Yes, and that is so needed. Nick, do you want to chime in? Do you have a name?
I do not have a name, no, but I like the pet dragon analogy. So the name is up for grabs.
Did it? Yeah. Well, there is the Whaley.
I was just about to say, I could go with that somewhere.
I could go
Sperm
with that
whale.
too. Hey, oh my God, that's awesome. See, there you go.
Sperm whale. This is my sperm. Yeah.
That's good. I love that. That's gonna be the next logo. That's advance. Yeah, when I
That
first
could be
met,
my special
oh
type
yeah.
of class.
Yeah, when I first met Aaron, I introduced him to his friend, and he's like, "That is like the lamest fucking name that you can come up with." And then so once in a while, I'm like, "You haven't taken out your friend for a while. You haven't shown him a good time." So it aged really well for me. He's like, "No, no, yeah." Yeah, I've always like looked at sexuality as like it's either like something, not a joke, but I don't take it as seriously, or I take the sexuality piece very, very lightly. And like I've said this many episodes ago, like for me coming out and gay, and um it has been a political move for me. Like I just wanted to put out gay. I call myself spiritual gayru. I want people to know that we exist. I want to be counted, especially when it comes to voting season. You know what I mean? And so it's always been that. But sex to me has always been fun and curious, and definitely different from every single one of us. Um, I took issue with that too when I took teacher training, when they mentioned the word brahmacharya, and I'm like, I don't know if that applies to gay men.
We've
You
been
know what I mean?
practicing that for a long time already, and we're ready to not anymore.
Right, exactly. It's like, Coco and I had this conversation. Like, I think that brahmacharya was definitely a key discussion, because we want to at least not be careless about our sexual activity, because there's consequences, especially for the straight community. We don't want to impregnate and create children out of like just big whoops. There's things called STDs. And so I see that place for it. And, I've always been curious, like how yoga applies when you're gay and when you're a gay teacher. Like, can you be as saucy as you are with your friends, or will people take offense to the way you talk? Because gay men, the way we talk to each other, like girl, sister, bitch. I would love to have a super gay class, and I'm just saying, girl, what's up with your downward dog? Or judge them with their outfit choices. Like, this, no, not this outfit.
Like RuPaul's Drag Race meets Power Vinyasa. That would be such a fun class.
Yeah, oh my God, there's actually a teacher out there out in UK who has started tampering with doing teaching in drag, which I thought, like, oh, whatever it takes to bring people to the mats. That's what I say. Whatever it is, get their attention, get them in here, and let's bring more yoga to the masses. So with that said, boys, thank you so much for spending time with us. If there's anything, Nick, is there anything that you want to share, invite people to participate? What are you working on right now that you can use a little bit of support? Now's the time. Please share.
Yeah, sure. I've just, like I said at the beginning of this, online for me has always been an avenue that has been a bit intimidating. However, I'm exploring it. So I've got a YouTube channel, and I'm going to start putting some like accessible free classes on there, just to get comfortable with it. Just for, I know I do enjoy it when I do it, but it's kind of the whole setup around it, and I can engage with a face and someone in front of me, but it's hard when it's just a lens and an empty room. So if you take my classes, please comment on them. Tell me how it is. Message me. But yeah, there's some classes going to be put up soon. So yeah, that's just Yogi Whale 1 on YouTube, because Yogi Whale was already taken. I have no idea who by. I need to find them. But Yogi Whale 1.
Oh, you're muted.
I will definitely post it on the YouTube and on the Spotify.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, good. How about you, Coco? Do you have anything that we want to put out there? What are you working on? Something you want people to support you?
Well, I just launched a new business, a new big branch of my business that's focused on human design, which is not male specific at all. It's, learning about your energetic blueprints and how you're designed by the universe to work. It's really an amazing way to get to know yourself on a much deeper level and understand your path. It does involve the chakras, so that's kind of its link into yoga and how I got into it. But if you want to know about that, let's talk about human design. And if you want to name your pet dragon and get more familiar and comfortable with your pet dragon, then come see me in Multi-Orgasmic Man. I just got done teaching. I always am coming out of that when I come into this podcast. So I'd love to have you there, regardless of your sexual orientation. And that's it. That's what I got going right now.
Beautiful. Good. All right, folks. Well, until we see you again, thank you for joining us.
You guys have the best day possible on and off your mat, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.